Hey guys, it's Two Guys in Hockey Talk. I'm Pavel the Cat Zygmunt, and I've got my beautiful co-host.
Well, the guy that's growing a beard, obviously, I got to bring this out right away. I'm Jack for the show, but I got to talk about playoff beards. So, the playoff beard that you see on my partner in crime here is not a playoff beard, it's a beard. This is a playoff beard because I started at 0. But we know why he's not getting rid of his beard and starting over. It's because he's too worried that this guy is going to beat him on a playoff beard.
I think you're mistaken. I shaved yesterday and this grew within one night. That's how fast it grows on my face. So you're right. You're supposed to start when the playoff starts.
Well,
I'm still waiting for your flow. Where's the flow going?
Get the mullet going too, eh? We should do a mullet next year. I also was wondering if that was just kitty litter. You know, there's a reason you're named Felix, not Felix, I should say Pavel the Cat. Hey, that's a compliment. I just called you Felix the Cat, right?
Everyone, we've got a great show for you tonight. It's Playoff Hockey, Playoff Edition. Sponsored by ASAP. We're working with them. Check them out if you want to see any other content on all sports, whether it's NBA, MLB, lots going on. This is episode 33. Whoa! Woo! 33. So, do you have your beverage?
I have it.
All right.
Here it goes.
We've got a lot to get through. We've been a week and a half into the playoffs. Cheers.
Oh.
And there's been some great storylines. Oh, does that taste good? Does that taste like victory?
Oh man, that tastes like victory. Not the victory I might have wanted, but it tastes like victory.
So let's start on the East Coast there. We're gonna start with what's happening with the Rangers and the Penguins. Now, some of the games are still going on tonight, so we don't know what's happening. Or just kind of your sense of the series, because it's been 3-1 for Pittsburgh. Who would have thought, and I was wrong, I mean, they didn't face Carolina, that Louis Domingue would be stealing the show against the Vezina candidate, Igor Shesterkin. What are your thoughts on the series?
Well, I'm going to go back, and you know, I actually think Shesterkin is actually a great goalie. He's going to win the Vezina, blah, 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 blah. But right now, he is sure is stinking in goal. I mean, they have dominated this guy. I was shocked. I'm kind of floored. And you gotta wonder about playoff experience with all those players they have in. They're an older team, but and I don't think this is really about goalies. It's about something else. So what's your take? What do you think is the difference? Why the Rangers have literally folded since after the first game?
5-on-5 scoring. Rangers mostly got a lot of their points off the playoff or off the power play, which is good. I mean, Chris Kreider had quite a few. He had 40 points off the power play this year, so they were really rocking it. But 5-on-5, they've struggled, and their big boys haven't showed up. Where's Panarin? Where's Zibanejad? You know, some of those big guys, and maybe Jim, who watches the show. Hey, Jim, you know, can kind of give a little bit more insight, because I really thought this would. They would take Pittsburgh to school, and Shesterkin would out-goalie the other team, especially since they're missing Jari and Casey DeSmith. So that's been the big thing. The other thing is Crosby is still the best player in the world. I'm sorry, Edmonton Oilers fans, but he has really put it to another level because he knows how to play, and he's really pushing this one last goal. Not to mention, Jake Gensel is one of the best playoff performers in the world. Whoever found that man, whoever the scout was that said, pick them out, you're a smart man. And Gensel, he's got 4 goals in almost every single game. Like, the guy just scores willy-nilly.
And you know, I don't think anyone really thought that Jake was going to become. We all knew he'd be good, he's become a playoff performer. And in fact, he was better in the playoffs in his early years than he was in the regular season. Even he was just a playoff performer, but he's really become regular season playoff performer. He is obviously, you know, going to be riding shot tails. He'll have another 5-6 years after Crosby's all wrapped up and stuff. It's pretty exciting. I'm really happy for Jake, his family, everything, you know, and the support that he gets in the Pittsburgh area. But listen, last week, Jim, you called it, man. Now I know it's not over till it's over, and I'm not going to say till the fat lady sings, because it could be a skinny lady too. But it's not over till somebody sings, and it's like na 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 na, hey hey hey, goodbye. So, but let's. I can't see the Rangers coming back in this series and being able to win this series. They might make a run of it. We'll see what happens here tonight. Can I put a special mention out there? I think he's underrated now, even though many years people always talked about him. But because of his age, Chris Letang is not talked about a lot.
Yes.
And you talked about leadership. Why don't you talk to us about leadership and what difference you think it's making maybe for the two teams?
I think a lot of it comes down to, and we'll talk about this a little bit later with Jason Spezza and the Toronto Maple Leafs, is that veteran presence of calmness, that adversity, that you know what to expect. It doesn't matter that the Rangers have gone up scored the first few goals in the series. Pittsburgh knows how to keep the momentum going, and they keep going shift after shift after shift. And I think it's like, if you go out and do your 30-second to 1 minute shift, and you do what you need to do to stop the opposing team, whoever that may be, whether it's Ryan Strome, whether it's Zibanejad or Panarin, whether it's Andrew Kopp, you're stopping these big boys, Lafreniere, who's a pretty solid guy, and then, you make it work. But Chris Letang, quietly, not only has he been adverse to physical injury, because, he's dealt with a lot of that, but he's really shown it on the ice, and he makes calm, cool, collected plays. So I've enjoyed seeing what he does, and he's been able to kind of, with Crosby and with Malkin, get to the group and rope you guys in and say, hey, we got this. We are not going down again like we did in the last two series versus Montreal and versus, I believe it was, who was it? The other team escapes me. Was it Philadelphia? You guys can write in the comments below. But we know what it takes to win. It's day by day, game by game. Yeah. It's a reset of the clock, like for other teams that know if they get blown out. It doesn't matter what happened in game 2, 3, 1. We're starting game 4. This is where we're at, or game 5, whatever the situation.
It's like a reset button, right? It's just like they literally can drown out everything, and it's only about right here, right now. So in the New York Rangers, before we move to another series here, maybe we'll go to Toronto, Tampa. I'd love to get to that one next. But before we go there, this is going to be an experience. I think Jim, he spoke around that last week, that it's going to help them. They're going to come out, but they're just not quite ready. A lot of young players, new in the playoffs. Who would you say right now for the Rangers that you think is actually doing what they need to do, and that looks good on the team in the future? Is there any player in particular that you would pick out, or do you think they're all faltering?
No, I think they're playing their game. I think one of the biggest surprises is Lafreniere and the experience he's gaining. I think it's a lot for him. He's really shown a lot of growth and maturity in the last little bit, because nobody really knew what he was going to be. And, he's still taking time to develop. Yeah. But he's making an impact. And I think with the fact that Gerard Gallant is giving faith and belief into this kid and giving him ice time to play, I think that's a big thing. The other thing is that blue line, for all its flaws, it's pretty solid blue line. You got Jacob Trouba, who's a solid veteran guy, but you have Keandre Mendler, who's there. He's got some size. You got Liljegren, I think that's how you pronounce it. He's a good guy. He plays some hard minutes. He came back from injury, so I think a lot of these young guys are getting that experience, and they're really going for it. I'm just a little surprised that Panarin, given the size of his contract and what he's supposed to bring, and the Hart Trophy year he had last year, Hart Canada Trophy, you would expect more from that guy, right? But and he's supposed to be your top winger, so.
Yeah, it makes exactly. I mean, he is their number one scorer right now in the playoffs, right? So he's the guy that's got. I think in his 4 games he's got like 5 points already. But this is who I think I've been impressed with. You're right, Lafreniere. I think it's doing. I mean, he's not over the top, but he's really showing. But and Adam Fox, I think, is still continuing to show. But it's Vetrano on right wing. I think this. I've heard a lot about this. Our buddy Alex Thomas of the Hartford Wolfpack play-by-play, been a former guest. He's talked about him often. I've seen it on Twitter and stuff, and he's talked about how great of a player Vetrano is, and it's just his overall game. It's like he's built for the playoffs. I'm really looking forward to see what he's going to do next year, in spite of whatever happens in these playoffs.
Yeah. Now moving over to Toronto, Tampa. You know, you're saying it's a three-peat. Do you even think that Tampa can get by and beat Toronto in the next two games? Or what are your thoughts on the series?
Oh man, this is hard now because everyone needs to remember I called at the beginning of the year, and so I've tried to stay faithful. But this is one of the only series that actually I think a team can come back from is Tampa. It's starting to look a little. Now this is why, because Toronto has choked in previous years, and Tampa has proven how good they can come back. It's starting to look like a long road back now to actually pull out 2 wins and 1 in Toronto. So I still think they'll get the next win. It'll go 7 games. I'm starting to doubt my pick, but it's really will make people second guess and rethink how far Toronto. I think if Toronto gets by, I think that is their one key group that they will have a hard time beating. If they take out Tampa, I think that can give them a good shot at coming out of the Eastern Conference. I actually think that's your winner. That group, Toronto or the Tampa Bay, will actually come out of the East.
No, fair. I mean, really, it's been a roller coaster of a series, and it's really there's been a lot of emotions, and there's a lot of demons that the Toronto Maple Leafs are beating. You know, Matthews scoring, putting up points. Nylander and John Tavares finally getting some points yesterday. That was a big deal. You know, Marner getting that first goal in that first game. That was a big thing off his back. That monkey that just, you know, you feel that relief, like, oh, I finally did it after not scoring for 18 playoff games. It was a big deal, you know, and there's a lot of pressure in Toronto, as everyone knows. The one thing I will say is Tampa Bay just seems to be coasting a little bit. And when they want to turn it on, they do, and they are electric. But that first game and that, I believe it was that third game or fourth game, like they looked flat, you know. You can't lose 5-0 and pretend to think that you can come back. And even yesterday's game being up 2-0 and then kind of, you know, laying an egg in the second and third. And there's been a lot of penalty calls in these games, which has been surprising. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, so let's remember, when we get through all these playoff games, let's talk about the refs and the reffing in these playoffs. Without trying, so we'll remember back to the Toronto series if we can do that, because I want to talk all about reffing with some of the other stuff you want to cover. So, okay, so in this series, you're right, and so let's just look at the last game here that happened yesterday. So as I'm watching it and I'm seeing Tampa, it's like, you know, they're fighting it, and then it's just like they just take over. For the next 10 minutes, they're just like in control. You could tell they're so poised. They have all the skill in the world. And then it's just like they drop off and coast, like you were just saying. It's really weird, but it feels to me like Vasilevsky is playing good goaltending, but not superstar goaltending. And I feel that Campbell is now, and no offense to you guys Toronto fans, remember I just said if you beat Tampa, I see you guys going to the Stanley Cup. But Campbell is now playing above his head right now, which is a perfect time. And you got to wonder if, even though with the injury and being out, if he just had enough time to recover physically to get ready for this. But mentally, he's looking good. The team has momentum, and so
it's also do or die with them, because their backup isn't exactly Mrazek's out, and you know Skalgren, like he's a decent backup, but you know you're not going to throw him to the wolves. So you got to ride Campbell, but you got to make sure he's protected because he's very injury prone.
So two players you're talking about. So Victor Hedman, the guy's a beast. Yes. I'm going to go on record here and saying that Roman Josi, I think he gets it this year for the Norris. But watching Victor, I actually think Victor Hedman is hands above every other defenseman in this league. I think he is the best all-around defenseman. Even
Cale Makar?
Absolutely. I'm talking best. So. Now, remember, Cale Makar, is he defensive?
Yes.
Victor Hedman, and he's not. Okay, we'll talk about that in the Colorado series. But Victor Hedman, to me, is the best all-around defenseman. Score, big, hit. He can do everything you ask. There's nothing he cannot do. He looks like a beast out there, and he's just playing with boys. You know who I also think he plays like, but he can score more? Is like Chris Pronger. Okay. I mean, he is so invaluable. That guy's worth, to me, 12, 13 million. if you were signing him on his next contract. He is
Wow.
amazing, man. So, anything else you want to cover on that series?
I'm glad you're not the GM of Tampa because you've just been doling out so much cash, making more than Kucherov and everyone else there.
Hey, let me throw this out. Defenseman, Toronto, Brody. I am shocked. I'm excited for Brody because he's gone through so much about not being a good defenseman. I don't know what's happened there. Do they have a coach who's a defenseman whisperer? Because they've made him more into a defenseman than I ever imagined possible when he played back in Calgary in the day.
He's been a solid defenseman. I mean, he's not even playing with his former lineman Mark Giordano, but yeah, there's definitely some interesting lineups there, But they've made it work. They're deeper in the back end. That's always been the struggle. Morgan Raleigh's always been an offensive defenseman. That's been his role. Labushkin has been a good pickup for them. He makes some minor mistake like any newer player. Almost rookie-like. But he's there. And Justin Hall, for all his flaws that people say, he's doing his best, right? He's your 6th, 7th guy, and he's got. And Jake Muzzin not being injured, that's a big thing, right? Having Jake Muzzin healthy is a big thing. So it'll be interesting to see. Now, I do want to
experience, right? Muzzin, experience. That experience 100%. Is coming through. Okay, are we going over to Colorado or are we going somewhere else?
No, we're going to Carolina and Boston. We're going to stay in the East.
Okay.
So, what are your thoughts on Carolina winning at home and essentially this being a series of home ice wins?
Ooh, I call this a series of homers.
It really is. It really is.
You got to wonder. It's just, and talk about dominating a game at home. I mean, obviously there's a give and take. I haven't liked some of the. I feel like, and again, we'll come back to reffing later, but I feel this is a series that the refs all seem to see wherever they're playing, they're going to favor the crowd. That's what it almost feels like right now when they're reffing. So
I agree.
You want home ice advantage, which we already know that's going to favor the Hurricanes.
100%. My big two questions out of this series coming out is, A, where's the additional scoring coming from Boston? Because it hasn't really come anywhere else besides that top line with Pasternak, Bergeron, and Marchand, who's, again, bigging up past and really getting under people's skins and making some comments to Tony DeAngelo, which, take it as you can, but it's interesting. And the other one is the goaltending in Carolina. What is happening? Are you sticking with Ranta? Is Anderson going to be back? Or are you going to go with Piotr, who's coming in and he's really lit it up and played well for them as their third goalie?
Yeah.
But, can Carolina sustain this for a full amount? Because, Antti Ranta's history with injuries. Yeah. Can he be okay? Or will Frederik Andersen be able to make it given his age as well? I mean, I picked Carolina. I think, we're really seeing what Zylstra essentially predicted is that Boston's going down. Taylor Hall, he's been okay. He hasn't really been impressive. Maybe Mike Smith can let us know his thoughts on the series, but it's definitely been a gritty kind of game. Similar when we'll talk later, like the St. Louis Winnipeg or St. Louis Minnesota Wild series. Yeah, I'm watching videos on Winnipeg today.
So that's funny. Actually, did not Zylstra say last week when she was talking about there will be moments though where there's a hurricane of goals going into the Canes' net?
Yes. No pun intended.
No, exactly. And if you think about it, right, you got Brad Marchand. He's got 9 points in 5 games, even though the series is where it is, and they've had some games that they've literally got almost nothing. So Bergeron, the timeless wonder, eh? And Marchand, great, but like you said, Pasa, and again, I know Zilzer talked about the person that she hates, absolutely doesn't think has ever been a good player is Taylor Hall. And he's not producing like they need him to produce these playoffs. He didn't produce last year. You got to wonder, what's that contract again? Do you recall? Well, how many years was it? Was it 5 years? 4 years?
5 years. 4 or 5 years, I believe.
If you guys know it, put it in the comments there. If you remember what his contract was.
Not to mention, they're missing Hampus Lindholm, who they picked up from Anaheim. And that hit by Svechnikov. Oh, great hit. But that took him to the next land. He went through some dimensions there if you saw him fall over. Great hit, legal hit, but definitely it was an interesting one. Yeah. Now moving over.
Hey, can we just quickly mention something on producing? We talked about this early on in the year when players were moving around and they took a chance on Tony DeAngelo. He's their top scoring point getter and defense. He's got 8 points in his 5 games. Who would have actually thought of that? Because he's been silent. And I would like to mention another thing for those that maybe not be as familiar. So Ethan Bear, I know there was all this talk. I know we're going to get over to Edmonton later, and there's been all this talk about when he got traded for Warren Foegele. By the way, they could use Warren Foegele right now, though.
Yes,
that big, tough hitting guy. But Bear has been a healthy. Has he played a game or 2 games yet? I don't think he's got into the games yet. If he has, I know he hasn't got any points as of right now. But yeah, and I want to give credit where credit is due to you, Pavel, my partner and someone who obviously knows something about hockey because Slavin.
Jacob Slavin. Yeah.
Yeah, I call him Slavin. You call him Slavin. He's slaving away. No, so anyway, but the bottom line is this guy is truly underrated. I know some people really look highly. You have looked highly. He's made a believer out of me now as one of those top defensemen now in the league.
Yes, he is in that top 15. And Taylor Hall's a 4-year by $6 million. So
4-year by $6 million. Awesome.
Yeah, so he's got 3 more years left after this year. Now, it definitely will end. I mean, we'll see how it goes tomorrow in Boston. Will Boston be able to go to force a game 7, or will Carolina finish? Now, the fascinating series in the East is the Panthers, the Cats, meow, as I like, versus the Washington Capitals. What is happening? The series is tied 2-2, Evan, and this is anybody's game. And Cats have gone on twice. People thought that the Panthers are going to steamroll their way to a Stanley Cup final, but is the President's Trophy curse real? I mean, we'll find out. Or will Washington, because of that veteran experience and presence that you talked about, Chris Letang and the Pittsburgh Penguins, will Ovechkin and Oshie, and they're missing Wilson right now because he was only in game 1 because he's got an injury. Yeah. Can they get past? What's it called? Can they get past the Cats? What are your thoughts on the series?
Oh man, and this is really hard. So I want to give a hats out. I haven't got all the information. I want to talk about this more next week. Well, hopefully, maybe the Panthers are in it. I think they're an exciting team. I'd like to see them be the ones to advance in this. I am shocked, actually, the Capitals are in this so tightly right now. But, the series tied up 2-2 going into tonight. So I just like to mention one of our new followers and has been following us, started this last week. Thank you, Joe, Florida Panthers season ticket holder. Joe has agreed. Everyone, if you have questions about the Florida Panthers, I haven't told my co-host here, but being a season ticket holder, she'll give us all the inside juicy information around her groups and stuff.
I thought you were going to say season tickets.
Yeah, no. Well, actually, they're quite costly. We're going to give some extra. So, Joe, I know you won't come on the show because you don't want to put your face out there publicly, but you'll give us the information. So we're going to be hitting you up. We got a lot of Florida fans. Thank you guys for joining in. And I got to say, I really want to see the state of Florida do well. But I still think, by the way, they should be Miami, not Florida. We already got another team in Florida, Tampa Bay. But anyway, the one big thing was the hit. Let's call it the hit.
The TJ Oshie hit.
Yes. So here's the question. Should this be suspendable?
Well, it wasn't. So clearly it wasn't.
It wasn't, so clearly it wasn't?
Exactly.
But maybe
I mean,
to them.
Well, I mean, they didn't suspend TJ Oshie, so it seemed like a clean hit. Now, when it's going in fast time, it seems, pretty awkward. But when you slow it down, you see the damage that is done. Yeah. I don't think it should have been a suspension, but that's just me. But.
So some people say that Oshie lifted his shoulder into Bennett's head, and if you look even closer, it looks like Oshie's skates actually come up and hit as well.
Okay.
So this is a big talk. Florida Panther fans are irate, and they're frustrated with how again, we're going to talk about the officiating later, but with the calls. But this isn't just on the refs. This is also on the disciplinary action committee, right? They have to make a decision 100%. On this stuff. But I actually think Florida will still come out of this. They'll find a way to still win this series, but I think you're looking at a 7-game series now.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that. And I think, as I like to joke about the Toronto and Tampa Bay series, I think the team with the red and white jerseys will win.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that a weird year? There's so many like series with their jerseys look really close to the same colors.
They do. My one question for that series is literally Bobrovsky. Can he make the save when he needs it to be? Because I think he struggled. And the question now is, can you put in Spencer Knight into this big game? They did last year. Yeah. Will that be enough? Because I think that's the big thing. And remember, he's got a big ticket on him too. So he's got to be able to perform, because Panthers can definitely outscore them, definitely. But similar to Edmonton, they have that run and gun breakout system, and they have a bunch of guys who can score.
Okay, so let's talk about the Panthers scoring right now. Some of the issues that I think they're running into, well, not some, I think that's what they're running into. Washington has come up with a strategy and a plan. I believe if you watch Washington, it almost looks like they're running more of a 1-3-1. So they're setting the forechecker in, clogging up the neutral zone, much like we'll talk about Edmonton later. And interesting, I mean, if you look at it, Huberdeau doesn't even scoring he's got 3 points in 4 games. You got the same thing going on with Barkov. Bennett and Reinhart, only a couple points. These guys need to be on top. I mean, they're glad that Ekblad is back. He's definitely one of the best.
Big help with him and Uyghur.
Yeah, Giroux, only a couple points. They are deep, but they cannot get through. And I just wonder, Pavel, is this in-game coaching? Is there better in-game coaching out of Washington? I don't know.
I'm going to say it's also goaltending for Washington, because nobody expected Samsonov to play as good as he did. Samsonov has played very well, above expectation. And again, same thing with the Pittsburgh-New York series. Yeah. Samsonov is playing than his counterpart, Bobrovsky, and nobody expected him to be at that level, right? Yeah. And there were some questions about him as well, right? You know, Bobrovsky's supposed to be a number 1A goalie. Samsonov, he's a 1B with Vanacek, you know, and they're sharing the net. But that, again, you're getting exceptional goaltending. Not to mention, they're missing Tom Wilson, and TJ Oshie seems to be scoring left, right, and center. So good on him for performing. And Ovechkin, too. Ovechkin, I think, has 5 points, if I recall. He's got a goal and 4 assists.
Yeah, him and Backstrom are in top. Yeah, no, they're doing really. Actually, Washington's doing much better than people. It's almost like they picked up their midseason form, right? Come playoff time. But that's where the experience comes in. I think, like Pittsburgh, right?
Yep, 100%. You know? They've been there before. They've been to the second round a few times. Now, moving over to the West, because there's so much excitement, we're going to quickly chat about this one. Colorado eliminating Nashville. Big shocker. I mean, I'm sorry, Nashville fans. You guys put up a good fight, but you know, it's definitely, that's not on the team. You don't have goaltending. You left Connor Ingram kind of, you know, high and dry. You know, I know he let in that first goal in the third game and or second game, and then then he made I think 47 or 48 saves after, you know, and then they lost in overtime. But man, like, you got to get your big boys scoring. You got to get Matt Duchene. You know, you got to get Philip Forsberg scoring. Like, he was the talk of the town. 40 goals this year, you know, and where was he this playoff? So congrats to the Avs, because they made, they made good on their promise of just advancing quickly, and now they can rest up and have all their guys ready for the next round, whoever will face them. Any thoughts on that series quickly?
Yeah, well, you were talking about Cale Makar earlier. I mean, obviously, he's got 10 points in 4 games. I want to bring a mention, though. I think people need to be careful estimating how good Colorado is when they're facing Nashville. Nashville could have missed the playoffs. They lost Suris. I mean, they were coming in decimated. That's why Roman Josi, I believe, should be the Norris Trophy, because of what he produced on a team like that, as opposed to Makar playing with a great team. So watch this. If you guys are familiar with shooting percentages. So Cale Makar, with him getting his 3 goals, it's based on a 15% shooting. That's almost not sustainable. I know it's only a short series. Gabriel Landeskog, his 3 goals, he's coming in at a 20% shooting percentage.
And from injury.
And Nathan. Well, but I'm just making a point that wouldn't normally happen. That shooting percentage. Nathan McKinnon, So with him, he's got 5 goals. But hopefully you guys understand, over 17% shooting percentage. We come down to Burkowski even getting his goal based on the amount of shots. He has only had 4 shots. He's got 1 goal. They have a lot of people. David Tays. Devontae, sorry. Thank you. You're correcting me a lot tonight. I'm sure you must love that. Telling me what people's names are.
My favorite.
So absolutely, obviously, I know absolutely nothing about hockey. But yeah, so the shooting percentages will not sustain. Colorado fans, be careful with your estimate. I think you have a team. Many people have picked you to go to the final. But understand, you did not face tough competition. You just got warmed up with the Tudor shooter on the ice. Yeah. That's basically all you got.
Fair enough.
That's my feeling.
Way to alienate all our Colorado fans. I think you guys rock and you to win the Stanley Cup, but I can say that about every team so that you just chunk out that segment and replay it over and over in your heads.
Okay, so yeah, we'll put that in our highlight reel for next season. I was just thinking I probably just called the goalies in Nashville Tudor shooters, so I think I kind of alienated now Tennessee as well.
Well, they have a good future there because they have Anisimov. You can correct me here. You know, another goaltender that's coming up. You know, Saros is still there under contract for a little bit longer. And you have, Ingram, who looks like he could be a good backup next year. So We'll see how they do. And, you know, again, Nashville, the questions are, will they re-sign Philip Forsberg and what that's going to look like. Yeah. Now, moving on, another gritty battle is the Minnesota Wild versus the St. Louis Blues. A lot of people on the show last week, you know, they picked Minnesota to go to the final, but they're on the brink of elimination. What's happening? And can they start Talbot?
Can they start Talbot?
Yeah, should they start Talbot? Yeah, I know. Yeah. I know nothing, but can they or should they start Talbot?
Absolutely. I actually feel that they should have ran with him anyway and only put Marc-Andre Fleury. I get it's a goalie experience thing, right? So Talbot needs to be who I think they run with. That's their goalie of the future. That's the goalie they have in place right now. Marc-Andre Fleury likely isn't coming back, and if he is, it's only a 1 or 2 year.
Well, now they've talked about him re-signing maybe 1 more year next year.
Yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. I still think Fleury's going back to Pittsburgh.
Oh, no, he's not going back.
Yeah, I think he's going back, and he's going to become a mentor and share some of that's just my opinion. I think he loves Pittsburgh. Okay, so let's look at this. This series, you talk about hard-hitting, changing. I know, hockey. like I thought Minnesota's just going to dominate. And then I was just like, man, Wild just got beat like a rented mule, you know? And then it switches back. It's like a back and forth. I think Minnesota takes the next game, and then we go to the game 7. I really do. This series, I think, could have nicely been a conference final even. And it was good hockey. It's not the Minnesota Tame. It's the Minnesota Wild. And I think you're seeing St. Louis really, they've lost a little bit since their Stanley Cup. They're looking like the experienced veterans on that team are looking like Tampa Bay when it comes to having that experience. And when they want to push, they can push.
Yeah, and Vladimir Tarasenko, scoring a hattie yesterday. That was wild. Nice. But, of course, Kirill Kaprizov has been wowing everyone. I mean, he is putting up a lot of points. Again, it's the depth scoring in Minnesota that I'm wondering about, and it's that defense. I thought that defense would be a little bit better. It's struggling a little bit. I don't put all the games on Fleury because Fleury has done what he can. Yeah. But with Minnesota or St. Louis, that I think some teams should take note of is that they've played both Bennington and Husso. And I think that's worked well in their favor to switch it up back and forth. Now, there's some other teams now, like the Minnesota Wild, who are now in the Game 6 elimination game, and have this big, difficult decision to make because you make the wrong call. Well, you should have gone with the other guy. You maybe would have won, Do you go with Talbot? So it's definitely going to be an interesting choice. I think they're still going to go with Fleury tomorrow because he's their guy, unfortunately. I know Talbot.
What does that say about Talbot then? What does that say about the guy you got signed long-term?
But you didn't bring in, you didn't pay a second-round pick, such a high pick, just to bring in the Flower, right? I mean, that's the whole point. Is you brought him in for that push, and next year they're going to get burnt with those 2 contracts coming off the books with being bought out, Suter and Parise.
So okay, but so hang on, let me get this straight. So I'm sitting there, you sign me, I'm your number 1 goalie, and you're like, oh, we paid a 2nd round draft pick, which has only got what, a 10% chance of even making the NHL and being an impact player over 100 games, and now I'm just the backup because you brought a legend in. I don't know. What does that say, man?
And he's Bill Guerin's guy. He knows him from his days of playing with Bill Guerin.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And not to mention Talbot has, he's been hot and cold this season. He's still a solid goaltender. Yeah. But they did trade their other goalie to San Jose, letting him. And because they didn't believe in him being a 1A, 1B. So what does that say? True. I mean, and again, Dean Everson has a big insurmountable decision to make. I wouldn't want to make that decision. And the one thing that I worry about the Blues is just, can they sustain this scoring depth? I mean, Jordan Kyrou and Sammy Blais have been phenomenal. I'm gonna give a shout out to somebody who's not really talked about. Justin Falk has been an excellent defense. Yes. I think that he doesn't get enough credit, and I think he's having a great season and a great playoffs. Him and Parayko, and they've really made that blue line work, especially losing Pietrangelo. So I'm going to give a shout out to him.
I agree with you. I'm very surprised, folks. I feel his game has changed, and he's redesigned his game into more defensive, and yet he still keeps the offensive prowess. So something that I don't know if people have thought about, Braden Shen hasn't played a great series. He's been good. He's been in it, but not the Braden Shen, not that star player who can produce. And Brandon Saad, again, they've been good role players, just supplementing, but they could light it up tomorrow. And so that's why I'm sorry. I know some of our folks voted in Minnesota to take this series, but I do not see. I see no reason why St. Louis cannot be the winners in coming out of this series now that it's got started and seeing what's been happening.
I think St. Louis was a little bit embarrassed last year the way Tampa was with Columbus, losing 4 games to the Colorado Avalanche. And I think they've come back this year with the passion to be like, no, we are a different and better team. Yeah. Ryan O'Reilly is still one of the best 2-way centers in the game. Doesn't get talked about enough. And again, I do want to mention another rookie there, Robert Thomas. Yeah. Fantastic pickup. Great guy.
Yeah. Okay. Let's look over in Calgary. Can we go there?
Let's do it.
Okay.
What do you got with Calgary? So why can't Calgary score until game 4, unless tonight is they have a blowout? And what is it that Dallas is doing so well and Ottinger is playing out of his mind that is not allowing the Calgary Flames to showcase their offensive prowess? Evan?
It's the 1-2-2, man. They keep one defenseman back, one up in the zone with one of the wingers, and they take the center or they switch. And so they're playing 2 guys in the forward, 2 in the neutral, and 1 in the back. And that is clogging it up for everything because they're shutting down and they're line matching as much as possible. I think it's the in-game coaching is very equal between these 2 teams. Sutter's great, the way he set it up, but he's asking for a specific game in the playoffs, a little bit so where it requires that number 1 line to be more defensive, and they're doing it. However, it's limited them, but I can't see them holding them back much longer. Calgary is about to burst at the seams. I think as soon as that pipe bursts, I think that there's going to be a flow of goals coming through.
It did last game where they won 4-1, but
it's
definitely interesting to see. What they've been able to do. The other thing for Dallas is you got to keep letting Jason Robertson or Joe Pavelski, score, because that's really your 2 offensive guys. Yeah. They're going to put the puck in the net. I also expected a little bit more from the back end, from John Klingberg, from Miro Heiskanen, Rupe Hintz, a little bit more. These guys need to put up some points because you're not going to get it. And Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin, because you guys are getting paid big bucks. And you are not showing up in the way you should be on the scoreboard. Now, the other thing I'm going to have, and we'll talk about reffing later. Why is it that Jamie Benn is getting away with some of these antics that he's getting up to and getting fines for them, and yet other players are being suspended? Because we know the type of game that Jamie Benn plays, and some of the ways he keeps himself on the edge. And I get it, and I know that Matthew Tkachuk doesn't want to go with him or John Klingberg because that would definitely be not an even fight. I'm sorry, Calgary Flames fans, you got to get us a door off our illusion in there. But it's a very tight checking game with a lot of defensive things. And I do, again, shout out to Ottinger for being an unreal goalie. Markstrom is good, but Ottinger is just that much better. I did not expect the Calgary Flames to be tied up with the Dallas Stars.
Yeah. Well, let's say Calgary, one thing that's been in their favor, Trevor Lewis has been phenomenal in these playoffs. That's why they brought him in. He is a Sutter player. You're going to see most tight games. There'll be a few games that are left open. But Dallas barely made this year. They've been hanging on by the skin of their teeth. There's been issues with injuries between the bench. And Sagan has not returned to who he once was. Obviously, he's still been struggling. I mean, it's been known for a while. But you know who is the revelation in Dallas? Is who would have known Rafi would have been as good as he has been for them on that left wing, right? It's not about points. It's about what he can do behind, and it's shocking because he didn't actually get the credit when he was in Philadelphia for the same thing that he's able to. So I know one of our former guests, Jamie Baskow, he's talked about him a few times of saying, oh, why didn't we have that Rafi? Why didn't people appreciate him more when he was here? Because this is what we're missing, right? But let's face it, I think he's just made more for the playoffs. So he fits that mold really well. But yeah,
I think it comes down to coaching sometimes, and I think certain players thrive in certain environments. I mean, I'm going to look at someone like Jason Dickinson, who was traded to Vancouver Canucks, and when he played in that playoff bubble a couple of years back, when Dallas went to the final, he was a very effective depth guy. He hasn't been the same in Vancouver. Maybe it's just, I mean, he did a little bit better with Boudreau, but with Travis Green, he wasn't thriving. And sometimes that voice in the room is definitely an impact. So certain players thrive in certain systems. Yeah. Daryl Sutter has trained a lot of guys. He's won a Stanley Cup with a few of these guys. Jake Muzzin, to name another guy, like Trevor Lewis. He knows how to get his guys to buy in and play hard.
True.
And he loves it.
True.
So,
absolutely.
And finally, the moment you've been waiting for, LA and Edmonton.
Well, especially when we live right in the Edmonton, we have a lot more info on this, guys. So let's get into this. This is a shocker to me. I was up late last night. I'm sure you were, Pavel. We watched the Edmonton Oilers go into overtime. They didn't deserve to even get there the way they were playing. I've never seen a team so Jekyll and Hyde in my life. But
especially this season.
Yeah, well, you're true. It was like a tale of, the good start, terrible. We pick it up, go average, and pick it up again for the playoffs. Go into the playoffs, and you start stinking it again. And even someone like their goalie. But I'll let you kind of hit on some Edmonton stuff here. I want to talk about Los Angeles for a minute. The Los Angeles Kings need to be given a lot of credit. Yes. It is a bewilderment. I mean, and let's give McClellan. McClellan is just sending one forechecker in deep, and you would think that one or even when they are trying to forecheck the Oilers, the Kings only have one guy back. They're playing one back, one forward, and three in the middle. They're clogging that up on the Oilers. They're having a hard time, even though they know what's going on, to work around that. And it's interesting how Kempe and was it Travis or Trevor Moore?
Trevor Moore. Yeah.
Trevor Moore. Yeah, I mean, the guy has been fabulous. Their game. I don't know if I've saw a team play so hard with as little skill as they have, and they were faltering at the end, and then they started building again. And coming into this, in the end, if I could have noticed that earlier, and I didn't spend enough time. Actually, LA's all wrong for Edmonton coming into these playoffs now that I've seen the way they're playing.
Yeah, 100%. I do want to note that they're also missing Arvidsson, who they picked up last year, and they're missing Drew Doughty, which are two big things, And Dustin Brown, again, another veteran playoff guy, knows how to play. Kopitar, great two-way center. And who's been very impressive, but we knew it because we saw it in the Montreal run? Philip Deneau. Philip Deneau is exactly the reason why Montreal had such a run, because he was going up against top competition when Montreal was going.
Yes.
and was able to defensively stop them from scoring. And he has been an MVP thus far for that team. Their Conn Smythe in season current series winner in my mind.
Well,
now the one thing with Edmonton. Go ahead.
Hey, can I mention about Philip? I don't know if most people realize he was drafted by the Chicago Blackhawks.
Oh, wow.
He was originally came in with them. The guy is 6'1", 200 pounds. So he's just a little bit over that 6 foot. But I did not realize how good he was. I mean, with they don't make the playoffs without Danault. And watching him in the playoffs, they don't win a game without him. But there is one other player I just want to mention that I have been super impressed with on the back end, and that's I believe you say, was it Dursey?
Yeah, John Dursey.
John Sean, I think, isn't it? Sean Dursey.
Yeah.
And like this guy, you think he's been in the league for 15, 20 years the way he's playing. Very good player. They have a great player there on D. How he stepped in and just kind of replaced basically Doughty out there. And so if you're a Los Angeles King fan, thank you all our California fans as you guys come in right now. And hats off to you and your team. You should be excited. You have a lot to look forward to in the future, regardless what happens if you get to the second round. Or if you end up losing out if the Oilers can come back.
Great prospects there and some quite good.
Yeah.
Kaliev is another guy. Byfield was taken out for a bit. So they have some good things. Now with Edmonton, I think it's a mental game. I think they just need to breathe and start on time. They have not started on time. I don't know if they can. It looks like Draisaitl, people are kind of rumbling that he's either sick and or injured. They don't know what, but you're still going to take 60% or 70% Draisaitl over someone else, if you're putting in a Devon Shore. McDavid is on another level. He is possessed. Mike Smith has been good. He's not been the problem. But again, you didn't give Koskinen a chance to try to play that one game just to kind of ease that burden. What that would look like? I mean, would you throw him to the Wolves in Game 6? Probably not. And I really think that Dave Woodcroft, as you talked about in-game management, he's been too in-game managing. So we go from Tippett, which was too much, not enough in-game management, to this.
Too much
reliance.
So you think
much to too little.
So you think he was overthinking this last game?
I think so. In the last few games, I think he's tried a few different things and it didn't work. And I got to say, Edmonton's defense has not looked good. I mean, Darnell Nurse now is out. He's got suspended for that headbutt. Stupid play. Cassian has been solid, as has Archibald in terms of physicality. Again, he got a fine. But what it comes down to is your big guys are your big guys. But I think the problem is defensively as a structure, we are falling back to our old poor habits, or Edmonton is. Right. And I think that's where the problem lies. Duncan Keith and Bouchard is not working as well as they thought. And you got to do something else. CC's been solid.
And it's always hard, right? Because for a couple games there, it was looking like Duncan Keith and Evan Bouchard were doing really well. And I mean, of course, Evan Bouchard's got his 5 points in 5 games, looking excellent. He's young. I think he's been put too much into the limelight. He should be more on the power play. I definitely think they're even more so than Barry, because Barry's also messed up. But let's go to something interesting. And now this is I'm shocked. So Lemieux has been a wonderful agitator early on in this series. And he's been cross-checking and getting away with crap constantly and not getting called for this stuff. And Barry's been the result of a lot of that work, but he won't face the Piper for someone bigger and tougher. He only wants to pick on the smaller guys like Barry, And so you know what that means? It means like he's playing playoff hockey and he's doing what he needs to do. He's actually being the pest and an agitator, or as they say, a shift disturber, right?
Yeah. Now, the one player that I think really needs to get going for Edmonton, and I'm kind of disappointed, is Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. He has not been effective at all. I don't think so. I mean, he's been all right. Tell me what he's really done. He's playing as their third-line center. I'd rather have him on your wing if need be.
Okay, so this is something interesting. I think that we agree. I think when they moved Ryan McLeod up there, I was like, you know what? I get why they're doing that. They want the depth down the middle. Nugent Hopkins needs the right wingers, and they need to be moving that day. I feel like they're trying to make him drag a third line, and
Yes.
they're wrecking the flow of his game by always putting him on the power play and the penalty kill and filling in the extra. I think that if you're not playing with Kane and Hyman on your left wing, when you move Hyman up, Nugent Hopkins should be going up there with Draisaitl and Hyman. I really do. I think I'm a little concerned that they're going to put McDavid and Draisaitl because they finished. I think their next game, I could see actually Woodcroft running that and getting then Nugent up on that second line. Yeah. Which I get. I feel like he this last game was not a good game for him. The game before, I think he was only average, but the other games, the first two, I thought he played really well. He was one of their better players, with it. So, but let's face it. Something I noticed, and I think that we gotta recognize is that Duncan Keith right now should be suspended. He should be suspended for playing so crappy. And I am going to go on record now and say this was a terrible trade. As much, oh, geez, I wish I didn't say this. As much as I argued that because I believed no matter what, his teaching and his experience in the playoffs would come through. And other than one game where they totally dominated in that big, was it the A2 game or something like that? In that game, that was his big game. But outside of that, I looked last night, 2 of those goals. I mean, he is slow as molasses, and he gets beat like a rented mule every single time. He's looking old. What do you mean you're in the best shape of your life? Go take skating lessons. You need to get faster, or you got to learn positioning, or quit cheating and start paying attention when the other guy in the other wing, when on the other defensive, when he jumps up, step back, dude. Come on, you're more experienced. So anyway, I think he's been a big disappointment along the way. And then the other person, and I'm just going to say this, I don't think Nurse is fully recovered. I don't see that same Nurse. And like you said, Draisaitl's been hurting ever since his last injury. You can tell he's still not the same guy right now. And I think it's affected his shot.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And I think the problem is Edmonton just needs to get out of their heads like Toronto and just focus on one game at a time. Yeah. You have one. You're not done yet. You're not eliminated. You still have a chance to come back. Will they? I don't know. It's hard to say. LA is really on a tear right now. They figured out a system, but you need to do something, and you need to start on time. That's my only thing.
Okay, we're running out of time, and we got a couple things you want to quickly mention. Some things we'll move to next week, I guess, for our discussion. Let's talk about the reffing next week, just because that's going to probably take us 10 minutes of talk. So let me ask you a question before we get out of the playoffs. What will happen? What's going to happen? Just tell me in 1 minute for all the Edmonton fans out there. What will the Edmonton Oilers do if they go down in this series and don't get out of the first round? What will be the kickback?
I think there's going to be a lot of push to get Holland fired. I really do. Because he had 3 years to improve this team and get better goaltending, and this is what he did. I think if that happens, there may not be an Evander Kane signing, but we'll see. But it's possible we may also run Puljujärvi out of town, and I think that's going to be a big mistake because he struggled in the playoffs, but he's been effective overall. If he just needs time to develop in season, that's literally what it is. But I think Woodcroft and Manson stay. I really do. Unless something drastic.
No, good. I just got to mention some Edmonton fans might be kind of smirking at your answer. The only reason you said they might run Puljujärvi out of town because he's not very good in the playoffs. Which is what you got to be, man, and you got to win now. So I'd be okay if it means signing Evander Kane for these next 3 years. So work with Connor McDavid. You got the big, the tough, all that stuff, and letting Puljujärvi go because you can't afford both. I'm okay because Puljujärvi, I think, is limited as a second line winger. He can help out in the top, but you got to get better. And you got to give up something to get something, and they got to clear cap space. And I have some ideas. Let's talk about next week, whether they're in still or not. because I think I know some ways that they're going to be clearing up some cap space from some little subtle hints and things that are being said around and outside some small sources. So let's have a little fun with that maybe next week.
I also think there'll be a bigger discussion with McDavid and his representative and the organization to see what's going on, because this is year 7 of McDavid, and if you can't get out of the first round, what are you winning towards?
Fair.
Regular season doesn't matter anymore.
Fair. Okay, man, we got 4 minutes to wrap up.
All right. Well, Barry Trotz is out as coach of the New York Islanders, which was a very interesting move. Now, historically, Lou Lamoriello has gone through quite a few coaches in his time in New Jersey and Toronto, and now with the Islanders, and it's worked out. You know, he's won 3 cups with New Jersey. You know, 95, 2000, 2003. So, he had some success there. I don't think it was the coach, but what Elliot Freeman and some others have been reporting is that just the poor start, away without the arena. So the 13 games, not the best, dealing with COVID and not being shut down like other teams like Boston. And, if Barry Trotz wants a job, there's definitely going to be takers because there's a lot of vacant places, right? So Winnipeg is one of them. New Jersey, I think, is one of them. Detroit is one of them. New Jersey, I don't know if Lindy Ruff is staying, but yeah, Detroit is another one. Will he go? And, he teaches defense first. Who would like that? Steve Yzerman would be interested in that. We'll see where it ends up. Winnipeg, they could use a fresh face after what happened with Paul Maurice stepping away and Dave Lowry stepping up to the plate. He was okay, but they missed the playoffs. A few other teams, Philadelphia would be interested. We'll see if Jamie Basco would be interested in that. And really, I was shocked because this year just, I picked them and I was wrong, so I can admit it here, about the Islanders making the playoffs because that's how good they were. But I guess for whatever reason, they couldn't get a hold of the series and go on. And so I wish Barry Trotz all the best, and I still think he'll be back next year to coaching. Yeah. Not to mention, there's been some rumblings about Joel Quenneville, and some teams are interested in him as well. But he hasn't dealt with the severity of the Chicago fallout.
Yeah, he's never talked to Bettman.
Yeah, so until that happens, go ahead.
Let's go and talk quickly. The last topic, we won't have time for anything. We should be 2 guys and overtime, just because we always go overtime on our show here for time. Let's talk about the first overall draft. It's going to be in Montreal, that kind of stuff. So just talk to us about that for a minute.
So it's the first time in 36 or 37 years where the draft is in Montreal and they have the first round pick. Props, John Hughes has a big job, new GM. I'm sure Bergevin would have enjoyed having that pick. Shane Wright is the consensus number 1 center that they're going to go, which if they pick, him and Nick Suzuki 1-2 punch in the future could be very deadly. He could be kind of a John Tavares-like kind of style player, Shane Wright. And then Arizona picking number 2, and I believe Seattle was number 3. So it'll be an interesting draft. It's going to be exciting. I'm definitely looking forward to doing it with you. There's going to be definitely some players to look out for. Logan Cooley as one of them. Yeah. And stuff. So what are your thoughts?
So, I think it's going to be like electric in Montreal, having the first over. I'm kind of excited just from a generation of excitement, and also for Montreal. It's been many years since they got a draft like this, right, to be able to come in. So good on them. Now, here is something interesting that I have. We'll talk about this soon, about the whole draft when I throw it out there. I know I've been delaying. It's just been so much going on to get out my top 15. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's out there. So interesting. So Gino Retto of TSN actually got together with Shane Wright and talked to him about earning that distinction of first overall. There's been some people saying how it wasn't earned. I'll talk about that another time. But his words, being number 1 overall, was really important to him, that he talks about. And he says, based on his work in his career, he deserves to be first overall. I was rather shocked that he had that kind of confidence going in, which I actually think there must be a chip on his shoulder going into this. So, but there is enormous pressure being a first overall. And I think that fans need to take care and realize, he's probably going to start next year in the NHL because of being a first overall. but don't overrate or even expect him to be rookie of the year, because I think his development is a little bit, it's about a year or two behind. And so I think he'll be great. He'll learn a lot. He'll probably be their second or third line center to start and then work his way. But anyway, interesting, the confidence in that young man.
Yeah. Yeah. So, all the best to him, and we wish him all the best in his future NHL career. We look forward to watching him.
It's be exciting. Okay, bud.
Any last thoughts?
Yeah, well, my last thought was you should have shaved your beard. I think you should shave it this week, start a week late. And, hey, if Edmonton's out, then you can just go back and, well, I guess just keep growing a new beard. And then I'll be
for the week.
Yeah, that's my rant. My rant is people who say they have playoff beards. They don't have playoff beard unless you start with nothing at the beginning. And I feel pretty proud that I started with nothing last week. And but I have a feeling, because I'm cheering for the Edmonton. So just so people know, I've actually had some people keep checking on that, and they go, "Hey, Evan, I thought you were an Edmonton Oiler fan, and you're talking to all these other teams, and you're not talking about Oilers." And it's just like, because we're about hockey talk in general, everyone. But the Edmonton Oilers, I am a major fan. I like to joke and call Pavel the homer. I'm a bit of a homer too, but I try hard to pretend I'm not. But I will say that I think my beard will be gone next week. Wow. Sorry, guys.
Wow.
My heart's been broken a few too many times.
Bold prediction. Well,
last thought.
Thank you again, everyone, for tuning in. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and give us a follow. You can follow Evan at Revenev on Twitter. You can give us a follow at hockey_2. You follow me on Color Avenue on Instagram. Make sure you like, subscribe, check out the ASAP Network. We thank them for their partnership. It's pretty amazing. And as always, Evan,
in the meantime and in between time, on behalf of Two Guys in Hockey Talk,
keep your sticks on the ice and stay safe.
And your head up.